All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cal Gould. We're here for another series of interviews on the history of ball hockey. We're going to hear some perspectives and a little bit of storytelling here by somebody that's been involved in the league for a long time. So who am I speaking with? What's your name and where are you from?
Yeah, hi, it's Bill Perdue and I'm from Edmonton, Alberta.
What are some of your early memories of playing an unorganized game of ball hockey or street hockey in your youth? What do you remember?
In my youth, I think that the first time we played organized ball hockey actually would be probably at the boys club in Edmonton. They used to have little kind of floor hockey tournaments, ball hockey tournaments. So oftentimes it was with the little plastic stick and the little plastic puck. But they had them in the gymnasium and they would have little kind of tournaments as we were growing up. And, and then of course that evolved to, playing in the street, playing in the playgrounds. As I attended high school, there were intramural ball hockey tournaments. And that is where I, having grown up with Steve Bosovic, who was obviously a key founder of the ball hockey in Edmonton, I was always, because we grew up in the same neighborhood, we were friends growing up. I always was playing on whatever team Steve would organize, and that would be either in high school for intramural, and then not so much at the boys club, but certainly intramural in high school. And then as we graduated from high school and began kind of post-secondary education, Steve went to Nate, I went to Nate as well. Stayed in contact, and Steve reached out to me it would be 1982, and said he was going to look at the group that we had played together with kind of growing up, and we would enter a team into what then became the Capital City Ball Hockey League. So we came in as the Crazy Canucks in 1982 in that inaugural season, and a team that was really just a bunch of guys that kind of grew up together, in the Macaulay area in Edmonton, and we just had played a lot of ball hockey in the playgrounds, and thought, with Steve as our goalie, we could compete with most teams across the city, and we did. We were quite young and quite energetic and quite a team of very close people together. So that was in the early years. Quite rewarding in terms of a social event and just being out with your friends and being able to compete, and also the social aspect of it afterwards.
That basically answered my next two questions. My questions were going to be, how did you get involved in the league? Obviously, it was Steve Bosovic that mostly brought you on board. And my question is, on that team that you first joined, how old were you at the time, and were the other players of similar age? Were they younger, older, or were you all the same age?
Yeah, I was probably one of the oldest on the team. I would have been 19 years old at that time. That would have been just coming out of high school. And the rest of the guys were my age or maybe a year younger. So we would have had 19, 18-year-olds. Typical when you kind of grow up, you play sports and hang around with people of your own age group. I think there might have been a couple folks that were, maybe 2 years older than us, just people that were kind of involved in some of the big games we used to have in the playgrounds. And so there might have been a few 20-year-olds, but certainly we were all in the 19, 18-year-old age group.
What school was it that you were at when you played those league games?
There was a intramural program at St. Joe's High School. So for the last couple of years, that was part of the intramural program. And we used to play at lunchtime against other teams in the school. And we were fairly good for our age group, mainly because we played together all the time. Certainly we didn't win the intramural championship, but we were very competitive, and I think went down to maybe the semifinal in that intramural group. And we were younger. We were like grades 11, grades 10. So that really was the foundation of the team that ultimately we moved into the Ball Hockey Association.
You said the name of that team was the Crazy Canucks. Did you stay on that team? Were they always called the Crazy Canucks? Was there a change in name, or what were some of the other names of teams you remember playing in those early years?
Yeah, we were the Crazy Canucks coming in, and we kind of an interesting story. We patterned that after the Canadian ski team that was downhill ski team that had kind of no fear and were very aggressive on the slopes. And we thought that was kind of and they were kind of the flavor of the day back then with, some of the downhill races that they were winning. So we were quite big fans of them and thought, that would be a representative of how we would play the game. So the Crazy Canucks came in the league. We were in the league for the first 2 years, and then different kind of factions of the team split apart. From there, we became the Stingers. And then after the Stingers, we became, what was the name of that team? I mean, they became the Manhattan Bronx, but there was a step in the middle there, and I forget exactly what team that was. But certainly for the first 4 years, we were the Crazy Canucks, and then we were the Stingers. And then there was another split, and half the team went and formed the Manhattan Bronx. And we ended up, I can't remember the name now, so I'd have to look back in the archives. But that was for sort of the, probably I would say the end of the run for that group of all the folks that I'd grown up playing with in the neighborhood. People got a little older. They were, at that point, maybe 5 years into the league and different priorities, and they kind of split out. And at that point then, kind of myself, Steve, and sort of a core group, we would then kind of align ourselves with some other players and move across with different teams. So, I would say that, really that team that we came into the league with probably lasted about 4 years, and then people went their different ways for various reasons. So, some were just off to play different sports. We had a lot of soccer players in our group, and I think made a decision that they'd rather be outdoors in the summer than indoors in an arena. But and other people just kind of getting older and deciding that their summers were better served doing other things than playing ball hockey. So like I said, that core group was kind of there for about 4 years.
Were you involved in any other organized sports other than ball hockey that you played, such as ice hockey, baseball, soccer, anything like that? Even before you played ball hockey, were you involved in any organized sports?
Oh yeah, I played sports throughout kind of my youth. I mean, I played ice hockey. I played football, high school football. I played coming out of high school. Then played men's league hockey. Obviously, I played hockey on some teams with UCal, and also I used to play after high school. I played in the touch football league, so that was kind of a challenge, trying to kind of coordinate times between touch football in Edmonton during the summer and ball hockey. I also played slow pitch, and so I was always quite active and a lot of organized sports. And then kind of as you get past that age where you're 18 and you're not in these sports streams, youth sports streams, and then you look at other avenues, and that's where ball hockey came along, and some of those other sports I mentioned. In junior high, I played volleyball, I played basketball, so I came up through kind of organized sports all through my youth and into high school. Frankly, played rugby as well. Rugby, great sport to play too.
In comparison to those other organized sports that you played, what was your impression of the ball hockey organization that you were involved with?
In the early days, a little less formal. Steve and the team on the Cap City side, especially the first couple of years, they were just getting it off the ground, and obviously they were not long-term organizers, fairly young. So it was a little, I wouldn't say disorganized, but maybe not as structured as it later became. I mean, as they kind of moved through many years and got more people participating, it became actually quite a well-run organization. But in those first years, oftentimes there was hard getting refs. They didn't really have good organization around getting refs to do the games. In fact, I reffed quite a few games in those first couple of years because you'd be at the arena and there's no ref for the second half, and kind of the question would come, do you want to ref? And so I reffed a few games at that point, probably for the first going to say maybe for the first 2 years, just kind of on an ad hoc basis. But, that was kind of symptomatic of really the organization. They were trying to put together this new league. They had the team, so they're just running the admin side of that. And then all of the other things that go on in terms of, trying to run a proper league, keeping the stats, doing the discipline, making sure the scheduling, arena availability, and then they had to flow in, proper referees. And I think that was one that was a bit of a gap in the early days, but they obviously overcame that. And like I said, became very well organized, through the years.
Oh, that's great that you mentioned you were also involved in refereeing in the sport to some degree. Were you also involved at any level, such as a coach, manager, or an organizer, or executive member, or volunteer? Anything in that?
No, I never did. I mean, kind of Steve was our guy. Steve was always leading the charge, Bosovic, and both with the team, and obviously the work he did in the league. So I was simply a player. I never did, and frankly, the refereeing I did was more kind of spur of the moment, ad hoc. Hey, there's no ref for next game, and could you do it? And I knew the rules fairly well, and I didn't mind getting a little additional exercise running up and down the court. So they just give you like $10 or something. I can't remember, but yeah. So I never was an organizer. I never was a team manager. I was always a player in ball hockey.
In the early days of the league, there was more than one division of play, although there was only one level of championship. What I mean by that is there was one league championship, no matter what division you played in. In a few years later, approximately 5 years later, there was a new level of men's ball hockey introduced called Tier 2 level. So teams that were in Division 1 were identified as Tier 1, and all teams in the lower divisions, no matter what division, they were considered Tier 2. There are now multiple levels of league play for men's. There's also multiple levels for women's. And what my question is this for you: what were some of the levels of league play that you were involved in, and what was the highest level that you played in?
Yeah, I played Tier 1. Like you said, in the early years, it was kind of one group, but I played Tier 1 for, I want to say, about 11 years. I think the last year of Tier 1 for me was actually with the True Blues, the year we won that. And then I moved down to Tier 2. Although at that time, there was kind of the first 8 games of the year, Tier 2 and Tier 1 would play, and then they do a reseed, and some teams would move up and some teams would move down. So after kind of that first 11 years, and by that time, a lot of the people that I played with had moved down to Tier 2. So it's kind of like, I played Tier 1 for many, many years, and then kind of getting to be around 30 years old and not really aligned to any group of guys that were playing Tier 1. I kind of moved down to Tier 2 to play with some folks that, I kind of more the social aspect of it, play with guys you knew, and Tier 2 was still, quite a good level of ball hockey. And then I played Tier 2 for probably, I played over 20 years for sure. So I played Tier 2 for, I think, another 10 years for sure. And then kind of the last year, I think we were in Tier 3. I think that the last year I played, we were in Tier 3. But and it's still pretty good level of ball hockey there. A lot of young teams come on the way up, and a lot of older guys like me just trying to hang on. But yeah, mainly I kind of played through all three. But in the early days, certainly for the first 10, 11 years, I played Tier 1. And then in a lot of good, very good Tier 2 teams as well.
Do you have any opportunities to play in provincial, regional, or national tournaments, no matter what level?
I played Div 2 provincials. We won one provincial championship. We lost another one. I was on the team that went to provincials, but actually could not attend that weekend. So I missed my chance for Tier 1 provincials. Certainly we won Div 1. We won Div 2 many times, and I played provincials in Tier 2 quite a few times, but I never did, and it's kind of one regret is I should have planned my vacations better. But the year we won Tier 1 and went to provincials, I actually did not go down for that tournament, unfortunately.
Do you have any favorite memories of playing ball hockey? At any level, do you have any specific or favorite memories as an individual or as a team? Anything in particular?
I think just the guys, right? I mean, the sport is the sport, and it's you're competitive when you play, and we used to have some crazy rivalries back in the early days. And I also kind of also remember those, but and then but it was really just being with the guys. And I think some of my favorite times were in those early days when we were with kind of the group that I grew up with, and all the players that we played ball hockey with, as young kids, and then through the boys club and out on the street, and then we put our team in, and just kind of the camaraderie that we had within that group, and being able to play and compete against other teams across the city. Those are probably my favorite memories. I mean, obviously winning kind of Div 1 with the True Blues, that was a great experience for us, and winning the Tier 2 and the provincials, those were really nice experiences. But if you're playing sports as an adult, obviously it's competitive, but it's a social side of it as well. And I think really the my best memories, I would say, are around just the group and the fun we used to have as a team. And a lot of that was related to the early years with the group I grew up with. And not to say that didn't occur with some of the other teams, but we were just there was more of us at that time and more people that knew each other for long periods of time. I think it was around the social aspect of it, competing hard, getting great exercise and, having a common goal. But at the end of it all, it was really around the social aspect and just the being belonging to a team and competing and having a common goal, I think was probably my favorite memories.
You still involved in any way, or do you plan to be involved?
Yeah, I still play, believe it or not, I still play ball hockey. And crazy enough, with some of the same guys that played with back in the league, and their kids, right? So we do a Sunday night thing. I'm also involved in a Tuesday night. And it's really just to get out and try and stay in shape. I mean, this absence over the period of COVID where we were not able to get together for a couple of years. We actually just started our Sunday night thing again 2 weeks ago, and got out, and we just have some good games, and we do it at the boys club again. So kind of back where we started, and some of the same people, and like I said, I mean, some of the kids, and now they're in their mid-20s, and chase those guys around now. But so still doing that, and then I also play in a group that does Tuesday nights, and I really do it because just get out and get some exercise, and and just really participate in the sport. I think it's even at this age, it's good to just go do that.
Did you have any other family members that played the sport of ball hockey?
I mean, I had one nephew of mine played for a couple of years. He was a fairly decent ice hockey player, but he played ball hockey maybe for a year or so, and then it might have been 2 years, but just really was never really latched on to the way we did.
What advice would you give to someone that wants to play the sport of ball hockey?
Just go and do it, get involved, find a team. I mean, if you can do it as a group of people, and we were fortunate because, we were all together, and we had a super organizer like Steve, who Steve did everything for us. So, put the team together, bought the uniforms, made sure we got the entry fees. You know what I mean? Like, Steve coordinated all that, and that was easy for us as a group of people because, back then our organization skills were probably not the best. So we had Steve doing that. I think for an individual, just get involved. I mean, obviously there's got to be ways you can contact the league office and come in as an individual and find the right level of team. Just don't be shy. Just go and play. I mean, it's a rewarding sport, and just kind of take that step and just, as the Nike commercial says, just do it. So that'd be get involved. Really.
I suspect I know the answer to this next question, but I'm still going to ask it. Is there a person, if they were here right now, that you would want to thank personally for getting you involved in the sport of ball hockey?
Obviously it would be Steve, right? I mean, and that's an easy one for me because Steve, I grew up with Steve, right? We grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to school together. Steve was always the kid that, always had the hockey equipment, or if we were playing football, he always had the football because he took care of everything, right? He was very organized. So, I mean, I would say not necessarily for me playing it, because we were always playing anyways, but for kind of providing that level of organization and that level of, he really just kind of pulled everything in and got it done, both at a team level. And that's where it impacted me mostly. But also, if you look at how that extended to this building the league and creating that foundation that became now really what it is today and what it has been. Steve would be the guy that I would call out as really, in terms of being influential for me around ball hockey, including playing it in an organized level. Because we were playing it anyways, and we still play it. But Steve was the guy that kind of brought all that together and did a lot of hard work. And I think oftentimes overlooked, certainly by some of the folks that were on our team. I mean, just didn't realize how much work he put into that. So I would say kudos to Steve for kind of being the man and through all those years.
As you might know, the International Street and Ball Hockey Federation holds biannual championships in all levels of play. Men's, women's, there's even a master's level of play. Masters is not the highest caliber of play. What it is it's the older generation for the men and women's to play at the World's Championships. Knowing that there's this great international group of countries playing the sport, what do you hope to see for the future of the sport of ball hockey, or what would you like to see?
I think it's I think the international piece is nice. I think, and I've seen, obviously I'm on these social network feeds and have a lot of people that connected to a lot of people that still play, and their teams or their teammates or their acquaintances are going to play in these international tournaments, and I think that's nice, and it raises the visibility. But I think that that's kind of the prize for a very select few at kind of the end of the day. But really having the foundations, solid foundations, and haven't been involved in ball hockey, as a player for, it's got to be 10 years now. So I don't know how they're doing now. I think they're doing okay. I know when Steve was running it, it was quite structured, quite sustainable. The fact that maybe they're looking to get their own facility versus coming out of the soccer facilities where maybe they're second-class citizens, in terms of the sports pecking order. I think just if they can continue to build on the groundwork that has been built thus far and keep it sustainable and just because I know a lot of people, you hear a lot of the kids just they want to play a sport and a ball hockey is easy to play, as is soccer, right? And so I think just being able to continue to pull those kids in, giving them something to focus on, a sport, and maybe not focus on maybe some other behaviors that are not positive for them. I think if you just build that framework, if you can keep it sustainable, having at a local level, so certainly in the city of Edmonton, and just continue to feed the sport with the young people. To me, that's what I would want to see, is not necessarily the international stuff and the accolades of we won nationals or I think nationals are important, but international. I think it's more, what is the sport for and who benefits from it? And I think it's the kids that and maybe don't have an opportunity to play ice hockey because it's so expensive, and so this other group of kids can come in and play and be part of a team and compete and have that sense of community. Just never, don't defocus on that. Like, have that as your primary goal around at a community level, at a civic level, at a provincial level. I think that's all good structure at a national level, and just really, but never lose fact that at a very basic ground level, this sport is important for kids. It's for some of them, it's really the only sport they can play. And probably maybe that's a little harsh because they could always play soccer, but we're from Canada. We're a hockey nation. Ball hockey is kind of an offshoot of that, and for them to still participate in hockey as a youth, and then as they get older into an adult, I think that's important for people. So, I hope that answers it. Those are just kind of my thoughts, but I really think it comes down to grassroots.
I appreciate that perspective. It really gives an understanding of, you don't have the roots, you can't grow the tree. So, yeah, that's very good. Any other personal thoughts you have before we close out the interview? Anything you'd like to add that I never asked you?
No, I think you've been quite thorough, Calma. I think you're working on a great project. I'm sorry to hear that a lot of the archives, have gone missing or got lost, and because I think there is some great history there and some great personalities that have played sport, and kind of from the early days, it was a bit of the Wild West to it's more structured now, and I'm looking forward to seeing the report that you've put together. I saw kind of your first draft of that, and it looks good. Yeah, and I think again, if it's almost like, in my view, there was this, generation, it's like a golden generation of people who really built that sport. And, I'd say, I know you were involved. Jeff Romaine was involved. Steve, obviously, Martin Moy, a number of folks. And they really did a lot of groundwork to get this thing up and running. And I hope through the work you're doing that, it is sustainable. And as our generation kind of moves on, that the next group comes up and builds it. And I think the work you're doing with showing the history is going to help with that. So I appreciate that you're doing that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time. We'll hope to speak with you again.
All right. Thanks, Con.